Welcome to this lecture. This will be the small lectures on the tour of the BurpSuite. So let's see on this help section, and let's see the BurpSuite documentation. So this has given us some page over here which is saying the burp scanner. So this is going to crawl all the content and audit for the vulnerability. That means it will search for the content that is fetching all the forms that is going to have some XSS attack, or getting some of the links. Navigation within the link is basically the crawling, and the next is auditing for vulnerability. That is just scanning for the configuration so that it will just test for large number of requests. So if it has some of the forms, it will just inject some of the code or some of the payload or random values to that forms field, so that it will see if it is vulnerable or not. So this is the burp scanner. We have the burp collaborator over here, which is basically a payload injector. You can simply see over here that we have a BurpSuite, and a burp collaborator is the sum of the protocol that it is linked with the BurpSuite, so as to monitor, so as to inject the payload to the application over here, which is our server. And the way that burp collaborator work is over here. You can just go to this to just see that how this burp collaborator works. And we have the content over here, which is the content of the BurpSuite. So you can just simply check this how this works. So some of these topics are interesting. You can see the reporting format if you search for any of the vulnerabilities, and you have simply here the pen testing link. Let me see here, and it is going to give us some of the tools that is available in the BurpSuite. You have a repeater, intruder, scanner, everything over here. And this is the file, or basically the testing workflow for our burp. So what happens is we have the tools that is available in the burp, and the recon and the analysis. That is the way that the attacks work in the BurpSuite. So first of all, you have the web browser. You make the proxy, that is the server, to work, and after that you make the spidering or the crawling the website, that is making the target site map and the proxy history through which you just burp the spider. You get the content, and now you just pass it to the intruder, or basically you just search for the vulnerability and you just want to exploit that vulnerability. And you will just see the passive scanning over here, which will just continue the scanning, or the live scanning over here. And after that you make use of this 4 tool, that is most important tool in the burp. And over here we have a repeater and intruder, which is mostly used in the case of a burp. In this case, the repeater is going to see some of the field changes that will be repeat, or basically that will be shown in the live website. So what we talk over here is simply when you just go to the burp and see the repeater, so any changes that will make in this field, which is basically the parameter, and if that changes is reflected in the response, that means you have a vulnerability. So if I say something like Udemy, and if I just press go, and if this Udemy is reflected to this response, and it can be anywhere, and if this is reflected, that means this site or this link has a XSS vulnerability. So it is the work of a repeater. And intruder is another important thing, which is responsible for just checking the position, and we make use of this attribute over here, which is the add clear auto refresh. We can clear this, and if you want to attack to particular parameter, you can simply go to that parameter, add that to the parameter, and after that you'll just add this, and it is selected now, and you go to the payload and load your payload, and I'll show you in the upcoming lecture how to load it and how to create your own advanced payload, because we have already studied the JavaScript. Now we are just able to make our own payload, and we'll just start the attack from the right hand side over here to see how this intruder work in the upcoming lecture. So this is the new way to just work with the vulnerability detection and the exploitation. So you can just go through this documentation. It is really good documentation. So you can see the tools over here, which is intruder, repeater, and you'll see how to work with this intruder and how to basically work with this part of these tools. So we have the dashboard over here, and you can see the issue activity, if it is high, low, medium, and all the info of that attack in the right hand side. And you can see the target over here. So target is important. So you can see that we have the host, and if you just select the host from the right hand side or the left hand side, you'll just grab all the content and show you the host, method, URL, parameter, and the stat and the length, all of the content over here. And if you see, we have the host that is selected and the method. So method is important here. We have the post and the get method, and the URL that is affected or that has been checked for the vulnerability, and the params. So params here is a parameter. So if I just select one of these, you would see that we have a parameter. So if you see equal here, equal to sign, and if you see something has been assigned to that, that means it is a parameter. So page is parameter over here, screen info is parameter, Java enabled is parameter, keywords is parameter. So if you just go to the post, you can see everything here. The Java enabled is parameter because it is assigned with this not supported. You can see the last name is a parameter over here because something random has been assigned to this last name, and the first name is also a parameter because something random is assigned to the first name. So if I just say instead of this, if I go over here and if I just send this to repeater, because repeater is responsible for just showing if changes to the parameter is reflected in the response or not. So if I just say Momo, which is random things over here in the first name, and if I just press go, and if I just search for Momo again, it is not reflected over here because it is showing 0 matches. That means this link, this particular link or this parameter, not the link but this parameter first name, is not vulnerable. That means you can't inject the XSS payload or any JavaScript payload in this first name because this is not vulnerable, because it is not reflecting the thing or anything that you just write down is the value to this field, to this response. So this is the way to see for the vulnerability. So you can simply check for this documentation for more of the information. So you can just go to the target, you can see the parameters, so that is the parameter, and you can just see the stat over here, and this length field is important. So if you have a higher length, then it is the most likely pages or the link that is going to be exploited. So this get method or this link is having the most length because this has been checked by the scanner mostly than other link. That means it has high chances of getting vulnerable. So mostly we check for the post method, and if post is not vulnerable, that means we go to the get with having the most length. So you can see 33,500 it is 33,335. so that means it is 33 something 3,35,019 length. So that means it is a most likely to exploit it. So we check for mostly the 15 to basically 20 if we get any of the first length. So we check for mostly here 10 to 15 having the highest length. So first of all we check for the post, obviously, because post is having some of the way to get vulnerable. So if I just say that I want to just send this to the repeater again and search for the keyword, and if I just pass 000, and if I just search for 000, then okay, this is not unique, so let me just pass something that would be unique over here. So I'll say pp 5p's, and if I search for 5p, then it is just reflected over here. That means this keyword field or the parameter is vulnerable. So we check for mostly for the post, and if the post is not vulnerable, then we check for mostly the 10 to 15 fields having the highest length over here. So you can sort the length just pressing this length tab, and we have some of the information over here, which is the title, comment, and the time where request was given by the scanner. So this is the important field, which is the target tab, and we have the proxy tab to just study about it in the upcoming lectures. See you in the next one.